This up by starting with you, Jane. This is a classic work of fantasy that has been read by millions of people around the world, has been interpreted in at least 2 radio series, has been realized at the National Theatre as a 2-part play, and of course is something people feel very attached to. So I'm wondering, what were you thinking when you decided to take this on?
I like a challenge. I thought it was time for the books to be liberated in a space which could do them justice. And I think that all of those different adaptations have all been brilliant in their different ways. But the real estate of contemporary television, being able to stretch those books out and really be able to sound every note that Philip Pullman sounded in the novels, I just felt it was time. And I was very persistent and very tenacious and very naggy around New Line Cinema and Philip Pullman to give me the rights to adapt it for television. And eventually they just got sick of me and said, fine, okay, go for it then. And we did.
Fine, Jane's a very hard person to say no to.
Yep.
Jack, I'm glad that I gave you a little space there at the beginning, because I think you had an enormous job taking a vast universe and thinking about how that would live on television. The canvas that Pullman creates is so vast. I'm wondering, because of course you had taken on an iconic property before for the stage, what are the keys in terms of taking something that people feel so attached to and reinterpreting it? How do you not just scream for mercy?
He does.
I've done my best share of screaming. I always describe it as doing a PhD. The first thing you've got to do is do a PhD in the author. So that's what I tried to do with Harry Potter, and that's what I've tried to do with His Dark Materials. To know everything and to have it all inside your head, so that then when you're starting doing the adapting, you've got the novel with you, but you've also got a conception of the world inside you, and the truth that Philip's trying to tell. And then when you're trying to translate it for television, you're constantly keeping that truth in your head. The thing that I always loved about what Jane said about what she was going to do about the books right at the beginning was that thing of sounding every note. And I think that's what we've tried to do, is just try and capture the important notes and tell them to the best of our ability.
One of the things that I'm sure you've all read these books, and if you haven't, run out and read them, that makes this world so extraordinary is the whole concept of a demon. And for an actor, that's a really tricky proposition, because it's not a character that's been animated or created for you to act against, but rather an extension of your actual living soul. So particularly, with Lyra, but also with Mrs. Coulter, that character betrays a lot about what you're going through. So I'm wondering how that worked for you as a company of actors. You're dealing with puppets at some points, but you're really imagining yourself outside of yourself. You want to start, Dafne?
Well, I think it was a massive help having it there, because it does help you. You only do, okay. The demon is the more sensible, more responsible part of you. So, like, for example, Lyra will be running up on a roof, and she'll be about to jump, and Pam will be like, no, don't jump, but she'll still jump. So it just helps that contradiction that she has in her head about, this is dangerous, but I'm still going to do it anyway. So it does help you having that, and it's a beautiful relationship that, for example, Lyra has an amazing relationship with Pan. Like, she really loves Pan, she really takes care of Pan. She has these amazing scenes with Pan where it's just her and Pan talking, and it really helps you as an actor, because you really see the interior of life of the character just by talking, because it's talking to yourself, but not because it's outside of you. So that really shows Lyra's love towards herself, and you can see different relationships with different characters towards themselves.
Ruth, you have a particularly nasty little demon.
Yes.
My monkey is particularly nasty, but
Don't touch
well,
monkey.
I say misunderstood.
Yes.
No, it was really amazing because these guys, very early on, they decided to use puppeteers to help us on the day. Not only helped us, but it helped the camera crew and the editors to know where these demons were going to be on the screen. But I have a guy called Brian who plays my monkey, and he's real. And no shame. And he's lovely. He's like, and he's brilliant. We together, I knew that this was a key to who Mrs. Coulter was her relationship with her demon. And unlike everyone else, my demon does not speak. And I'm pretty cruel to my demon, and in return, my demon is pretty cruel to other people. And so we had to work out where that came from. And I think it's a real key to who Mrs. Coulter is. It's the key to who everyone is a relationship with themselves. And so that was, me and Brian worked a lot on how each scene would move around the room, how each scene, if we're on our own, what that looked like. And it really gave so many more layers to who this character is through the eyes of by dealing with the demon and her relationship with it. So it was, and on the day you'd have him next to me. I mean, Brian was crawling around the floor next to me, or in something.
Yeah. You're becoming Ruth and Brian would be just like.
Yeah, and now we have to exit him out, and it's quite sad to say goodbye to Brian. But
We love you, Brian.
we do. He's back for the second season. We hired him for that.
Lynn, you play the most different character, I think, than you've ever played. I think people imagine you as many things, but I'm wondering about the conversation about Texan who flies balloons and why.
Typecast, again. It was very simple, actually. I was working on Mary Poppins Returns at the time. I was in London, and Jane and Jack took me out for a drink, and I didn't know what it was about. I was a huge fan of the Harry Potter play. I'm a huge fan of everything Bad Wolf has done, and so I was like, yes, I will sit and have dinner. And they said His Dark Materials, and I said, yes! I didn't even know what the part was. I would have sharpened pencils for this. I'm a huge fan of the books. When my wife and I started dating, we read these books together. This is like part of our falling in love story, these books. And it's a beautiful coming-of-age story, and there's a love story in there as well. So they're in a really special place in my heart. And they said Lee Scoresby, and I said yes. And then I figured if they saw it, I could find my way to seeing it. And I love my demon. You know, I've been lucky enough to work at Sesame Street for many years. I write songs for Sesame Street. And when you bring kids to the set, they don't look at the Muppeteers. They're just talking to Elmo, they're just talking to Grover. And that's how it was for us with our demons after a while too. I had this amazing Arctic hare named Hester. And for me, she was this beautiful puppet, and the puppeteer who worked with her was so brilliant that I would just be talking to Hester. My relationship with Hester is like, we're like our own little buddy cop movie in the middle of this show, because I think Lee's a lonely guy. He spends a lot of time alone in the air, so we talk to each other constantly. So that was my relationship with my demon.
So from Hester to Stella Maria, the thoroughly badass snow leopard.
Yeah, that's my soul. Just typecast again, right? I think one of the really cool things about this world is that when you're a child, before puberty, your demon is changeable, and it can change into any shape depending on what mood or just what you desire or what would help the situation. But when you reach puberty, when you start to settle on who you actually are, your demon also settles on a form, on an animal's form. And I guess the day that Lord Asriel's demon settled as a snow leopard, he went, wow, I'm totally badass. And I'm a real loner. And this is the other interesting thing, in this world, once your demon settles, you get to look at yourself and go, wow, I'm a subservient dog, or I'm a flighty sparrow, or I'm a badass snow leopard that just walks his own path, you know what I mean? And it's just it's a very different kind of, I guess, relationship with yourself, and your own kind of self-presentation changes because you've got a reflection of yourself right in front of you. You can't really hide from. You can't lie to. You can't lie about yourself. And by the way, everybody else can see what your soul is like as well. It's a really interesting, makes for interesting relationship dynamics.
Jane, when you looked at this project as something to develop, one of the things that this has that makes it so unique as a work of children's fiction or young people's fiction is it's very dark and complicated and philosophical. And the ideas that you're dealing with in this are maybe more easily written about and conveyed as acting. I would think when you're thinking about Milton and Blake and whether there's a God, you don't necessarily think that they lend themselves to fantasy as easily in film. How did you, without virtue of having, with Jack, without virtue of having explanatory paragraphs, how did the two of you think about how are we going to immediately get people right in there into this totally different kind of place?
Well, we fried each other's brains, I think, and those of everyone around us. I think that Philip Pullman was our guide, really. In my experience, children love dark, complicated themes and big questions about who we are and where we are. And I think that Pullman never underestimates children, either as the hero and heroine of his books or as his readers. And Pullman says what he wrote was adult books that children should read. And I hope that we ended up making an adult piece that children will watch and should watch. But essentially we just followed his lead. He starts with Asriel trying to nearly be poisoned by someone he thought was his friend, and so the story opens. We put a few little bits and pieces of treats in for the few minutes before that, but essentially everything starts as it started in the books, with an attempted murder that Lyra stops. And from that moment on, everything in the world opens and blasts out. So it's a roller coaster ride of a narrative. His books are real page turners, and we just followed that pace.
And Jack, when you're thinking about the fantastical, because you've already done something that would seem impossible, which is to take a world where people cast spells and create magic and put it into a live performance, which is hard to do, obviously. Here, do you think about all the amazing, you can really get distracted, I would think, as a writer, by all the magical when you're really trying to drive a story with characterization and plot. You just say, I'm not thinking about those demons on their shoulder right now, or I'm not thinking about the fact they call electricity something else, or how do you...
By the way, Jane has been very nice about the process. I got it wrong an awful lot of the truth of how we developed this story. We did 46 drafts of episode 1, which is a lot of drafts to do.
I think that might be me getting it wrong more often than you, but...
You do sometimes get lost in other stuff, but the thing about the demons is that they are characters, and so, everything that Philip builds is for a reason. We wrote, Xavier, who's my script editor on this show, wrote papers on all sorts of different facets of this, so that we thought, it was that thing of that PhD thing of just kind of like, we need to understand everything. And if we can understand everything, then we can tell a really basic story. And my favourite scenes in this show are just scenes between two characters. It's Lyra and Asriel together in a bedroom. It's Mrs. Coulter giving Lyra a bath. It's just little. It's Lyra stealing bacon from Lee Scoresby. It's little moments where you've just got the light coming in. And because we had these incredible actors that were prepared to test every single thing that I wrote, and prepared to fight me on different things in a really interesting way. I just shared a 7-hour plane ride, no, an 11-hour plane ride with Ruth Wilson, in which we were sitting next to each other, more or less, and I was literally passing a laptop over the seats so that she could read stuff and then give me notes, and then I would rewrite and then show her again, and that's what this process is about.
Sounds like a relaxing plane ride.
But sorry, Jack.
Jane always said this is the show made by people who are very passionate about it, and that's the truth. Every single, I'd have massive arguments with our production designer. I'd have, and these guys took control of it and made it the humanity of it, which Philip is so full of humanity, made that absolutely the centre of what we did.
It is an amazing story, especially when you look at it from Lyra's perspective, because it really is a coming-of-age story wrapped into a fantastical adventure. And I'm wondering, Dafne, how familiar were you with these books when you started out?
Well, the books came out before I was born, so...
That doesn't mean you can't read.
That sounded really wrong. So I didn't really know about them, and I remember I had the audition. I had my last audition with Ruth, so I went into my audition, right, and I'd only been halfway through the book because I was like, I'm not going to get it anyway, so whatever. So I went into the audition, I did it, then I was called, they were like, you got it. I was like, oh, right, we've got to read 3 books now. So I read them, and at the beginning I was like, okay, let's just mind open. Literally, until I finished the 3 books, I did not close the book. They're just so they're so fun, they're so entertaining, they're so good, because Philip's amazing. I don't know how he gets these ideas, but I don't know where he gets these ideas from, honestly. But yeah, and it's also, if you look, it can be a children's story, but if you look deeper, you can really see all of these criticisms he does to lots of things. So I think it's quite age appropriate for everyone. And yeah, so I was a fan after I read the books, but before the show I had not heard of the books.
Actually, Dafne, that just convinces me you're an even better actress than I thought you were. You did your audition. I thought you would have read the books.
I don't have an answer for that.
Kudos to you.
Ruth, Marisa Coulter is one of the most fascinating characters in fantasy literature because she's not readable despite the fact that she has a monkey on her shoulder and lap. She's not someone whose motivations are really ultimately made clear until you're well into the story. I'm wondering for you, what drew you to the character? I mean, this is a character in stock children's fiction who could be played as just a nasty piece of work, but that's not what she is at all. In fact, she's far more interesting than that. So what was it about?
I said this earlier, but when my agent phoned me up and said they want to offer you Mrs. Coulter, and I didn't know the books either. I'd heard of them and I'd heard about the play, but I hadn't read them. And I said, who? And they're like, come on, it's the most iconic character in kids' fiction. And I started reading the books, and there's a description of her as, she says, she's the cesspit of moral filth and the mother of all evil. And I thought, okay, I have to play this role. Absolutely, I can't turn this down. And of course, it's really fun to play bad characters, but what I find so fascinating with her, she's so complicated, and she's unknowable, and she's frightening for that reason, but what we've done, and Philip Pullman gave us license to dig a bit deeper into her and to sort of see her on her own with her monkey, to see who she is without Lyra, and why she might do the things she does. And that for me was fascinating, to really dig into why she has a monkey, why can she separate from her demon when no one else can? Why, there's really, really deep, sort of sophisticated and complicated things about this character, which make her fascinating to watch and endlessly frightening because you never know which way she's going to turn. And that was what we've really enjoyed exploring with her. So it's great for me to play all sort of facets of her. And that's what Philip allowed us to dig deeper.
It's a character that is frightening in some ways because she is so incredibly charming.
Yes. Yeah, she has this charm, and she's beautiful and glamorous, and she wears great outfits.
Great outfits.
Yeah, and she's got this monkey who's amazing looking. She's very powerful. And that's why she's frightening, because she holds so much power. And she can manipulate. She's the master manipulator. So she's incredible, but she's deeply vulnerable. And when we get into her and see where and why, what makes her tick, it's kind of scary. And her vulnerability is Lyra. And when she comes across Lyra, that's when you start to see this one. You start to see all that kind of pull apart.
Yeah.
And for you, Lynn, you have a character who in some ways is out of our collective idea of a hero. There's a lot of in that hero's DNA that we would recognize, and you have to change it a little bit, and you have to play a lot of scenes with a very large bear.
Like you do.
And a rabbit.
Yeah.
And a rabbit and a bear.
Yeah, I think my first 2 days of
Witches.
filming were a very long, complicated sequence where I am literally pulling all the pulleys and ballasts on my hot air balloon, and the next day was like a 3-day bar fight. And I was like, this is just the most fun I've ever had. It was, it was pretty different from Mary Poppins Returns. But it was such a joy. It really, every day was such a joy. I remember thinking,
I love that.
I remember when we were finishing filming at the end of last fall, and one of the crew guys was like, well, you're gonna go on a long holiday after all this work. And I was like, no. Me being a cowboy who flies a balloon and fights in bars was the holiday. I have to go back to real life now and like write stuff and do other things. This was the vacation.
James, you are both intensely curious and
Curiously
intense.
Curious.
Stole my line. In this part, one of the things about Lord Asriel that's interesting is so much of him is pulled in. He's got a lot of mystery to him, and a lot of what you have to convey is limited, at least certainly at the beginning. You're not allowed to convey a lot of what's on your mind. And both you and Ruth have to be not so nice to a child. I mean, you're not mean to her, but you're not, a little withholding.
I'm giving a lot of Dean.
Right. I mean,
I'm not withholding the Dean, I wouldn't say. I think what's really interesting, you said it earlier, this is a sort of a coming of age story in a lot of ways around Dafne. And it's an amazing story of a young person who's an orphan who is struggling to identify herself, and she has these two sort of proxy figures in her life, this uncle and this woman, Miss Coulter, who fell in as proxy parents, it seems, for a while. And she's trying to understand herself through them. I disappear, I run away. Daphne's trying to sort of understand this slippery, mercurial, quixotic figure of Mrs. Coulter as well. And we're so difficult to get a hold of. This girl just needs to get a hold of something. And it's just so compelling. And if we don't withhold, if we aren't mean, which is so crazy, isn't it? That like, a kid is going to love the person that treats them mean, It's like, because it's just someone, It's just heartbreaking. But yeah, we do have to be really mean. My demon's a snow leopard. I'm completely solitary, and I'm a predator. Do you know what I mean? I'm hardly cuddly. I'm going to give out, bedtime stories. But yeah, he's got a very important mission. This whole thing, in many ways, you said again, it's a coming of age story. The story won't work unless she comes of age, and that plays into the themes of the whole thing. The whole thing is about freedom, and Lord Asriel is all about attaining that freedom for everyone on a grand scale that we won't give away right now. But he'll sacrifice any love in his life for that goal, for that purpose. And some little girl that he keeps an eye on sometimes, he'll put that second.
in many ways, the characters are archetypal mother and father characters. They start one way, they end another. In some ways, she's bouncing off the two of you, looking for nurturing, looking for guidance, hero worship, and disappointment. Did you, Ruth and James, talk together about how you would play that, or how you would engage?
We met on this, I think, the last 4 days of the shoot. I got the job very last minute. I got called by a very good friend of mine who's the casting director, going like, "You know these books, right?" I was like, "Yeah, man, I've read them like 3 times." They went, "You want to come and play Lord Asriel on Friday?" I was like, "Yeah." So we really didn't have much chance to talk about anything, you know.
No, but I've seen it, and you know, he's pretty mean, and I'm pretty mean, so I think we've got...
They're quite similar. You're very similar to me. Yeah, not good.
You also both, I mean, the novels have a lot to say about religion, and they certainly can be interpreted as a critique of Western religion. And both you and James and Ruth, you both have had Catholic education. You came in from the inside, I would think. You bring special things to this work because you're looking at it through the lens of people who may have learned a lot of doctrine and theology in your educations. I'm wondering, do you think about that, about how, as people who may have been exposed to church teaching or grown up in a Catholic tradition, you know, how do you feel about the way the story works, or do you even think about it?
Yeah. I don't know if it's like purely Catholic. I mean, obviously Philip was probably referencing that in the books, but for me it's more about like authoritarian kind of dictatorship, or, you know, or kind of institutions which are set up, which are authoritarian in nature. And I mean, yeah, I grew up a Catholic, and I no longer go to church, but I sort of believe, I think there's something different between faith and religion, and I suppose that's sort of something he discusses in the book too. But that's why these books are so fascinating. They kind of deal on such different levels. They deal with like just being a child, a coming of age story, but they're also about philosophy and religion and faith and spirituality and the animal sides of ourselves. So that's why they're kind of amazing and fascinating, and they keep you all like hooked in and surprised every page you turn over of those novels. And in every scene you watch, there's something new to talk about and discuss. And how our community is structured and how we sort of live within our community, whether it needs politics or religion or family. So all those things are in the books and in this show.
Jack, when you think about these books, in a lot of ways they're deeply celebratory of the human spirit, of unmooring yourself from what you maybe feel like you ought to do, and living in the moment, living your life, finding your passion without giving up your soul, right? Do you think they're particularly timely at this moment when we're arguing about a lot of this stuff?
The thing that when we were pitching it around town, the thing that I kept on saying was that this is an anti-superhero story. In that if this was a superhero story, you'd be following Lord Asriel's path, and that when and the thing I love about Lyra is she is constantly following the path of the good. And whereas Asriel and Mrs. Coulter are set on great big missions and doing great big changes to the world, all of which are actually necessary in this world that they live in. Actually, it's the young woman who's going, I want to be good. I've got a tattoo that's from ET, be good. I really believe that that we should be following our goodness right now, and we are getting distracted by greatness quite a lot. In these arguments, and there's something very beautiful about the way that Philip sees the world and the way he communicates this world that I think it has got lessons for all of us.
Man, he hit you with your tattoo that was the thesis of the show. That's a flex, y'all.
And now
it's a
you're
quote from
holding
ET.
a tattoo. Surprise. Jane, was this a tough sell to HBO to explain? Look, we're going in. It's a fantasy novel. It's got a young heroine. It's totally different than what's on TV right now. How hard was it to kind of convey these very complicated ideas to the network, to sort of get it out there?
Well, it was a long process. It took us a couple of years to really begin to put the piece together in a way that people other than myself and Jack and Dan, my fellow executive producer, and a small group of people could see. The BBC came on it right from the start. The books are huge in the UK. They kind of like could take all of that on board quite easily. But as the piece grew and it became more expensive, and we looked for more partners to bring on board, it was a long conversation with HBO. I've been fortunate enough to work with them for many years, and they were patient, and each week we put another piece of it into place, or we'd show them another set of designs or a new script or another piece of casting, until finally they said, okay, we're there. And I think part of its appeal for HBO is actually the very fact there is nothing else like it on television. It's not an easily comprehensible piece, and I think they felt that was very much for them. Can I just say something? I just want to say something really quickly about the religion piece. Do you mind if I do that?
I would love you.
Okay. Just because I think that often, is one of those, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this. I think one of the great things about His Dark Materials is there's so many different conversations to have about it, and there are many conversations about the religious aspect of His Dark Materials as well. And I think, like all conversations, talking about these days, it's better to have a conversation where there's some facts on the table, rather than just lots of assumptions that lots of people who haven't read the book sometimes make about the religion. Philip Pullman in these books is not attacking belief, he's not attacking faith, he's not attacking religion or the church per se. He's attacking a particular form of control. Where there is a very deliberate attempt to withhold information, keep people in the dark, and not allow ideas and thinking to be free. And at times that can be personified by an autocratic kind of form of government or a church or whatever it is. In His Dark Materials, it's personified by the magisterium, but it doesn't equate to any particular church or form of religion in our world, and we should be clear on that.
The books and the show are a lot about resistance to authority and questioning your authority, right? And thinking about finding the truth. For Lyra, it's really a journey to adulthood. And for you start out this piece as a very, not always a pleasant child, a child who makes a lot of mistakes on her way to not complete understanding. How close do you think you and Lyra are as
Okay. We are, I think we're quite close. Like, Lyra has taught me a lot, because I've been playing her for over a year now. So, yeah, what I love about Lyra is how much she changes. Like, she learns from other people. Like, she sees Marisa Coulter's errors and Lord Asriel's errors, and she learns from Lee, and she learns from Yorick. And what's amazing about her is that she just absorbs information so well. So that makes her become a better person. It makes her become, as Jack was saying, someone who only focuses on, she won't be thinking, if I do this, will it make me get further? Will it make me go right? She just thinks, is this better? Is this going to help people? Is this going to, I don't know, but she's not very ambitious, whereas at the beginning, she's like lying all the time, and she's quite arrogant, and she's quite, I'm thinking, not annoying, but she's great fun. She's fun, but she's quite...
Asriel finds her really annoying.
Yeah.
Likes her, but she's really annoying.
But she's more, at the beginning, she's much more innocent. Like, episode 1 is totally just like Lyra running around roofs, and then suddenly she's like, BAM! Life smacks you in the face, and then she's like, whoa, what just happened? So that kind of, just all of this pain, smack after smack, just makes her grow so much. So I think
she is a big liar.
Massive.
Massively dishonest person.
Yeah. I have some really nice scenes with Ruth where I tell her lies and she's like, "You're lying."
We sort of lie to each other though, don't we? We're both,
Not.
I think, well, I'm not sure who's the biggest liar.
Depends which part of the show you take.
It's true.
James, you were referencing this earlier. You play a character who is willing to do quite literally anything to achieve a goal. He starts out, you might think of him as a classic heroic figure, and you really begin to realize there's a price to be paid. There's a ruthlessness about him that is lethal, really. I'm wondering, I mean, you've played such a wide array of characters. What's interesting about him is you really don't know whether he's a good man or a bad man or a bad man with a good aim. What particularly appeals to you about Asriel, and are you as ruthless as he?
No, no, I'm totally not as ruthless as he. I'm a total softie in lots and lots of ways, but it's great fun to play somebody that looks at the world and goes, I don't like this, this is utterly wrong, and I am going to change it, and I'm going to rip it apart doing so, and nothing is going to stop me doing that. Love isn't going to stop me, no sort of romantic love, no familial love, no respect for any institution will stop me from making this world a paradise, and emancipating all of us from these systems of oppression. And I think what you said as well earlier, you said Philip Pullman is really celebrating humanity. I think Philip Pullman almost thinks that, I think part of what he sees as one of the prime characteristics of humanity is rational, creative, imaginative thought. And that even plays into her being a liar. Like, that's her imagination, do you know what I mean? He doesn't call her a liar, he calls her silver tongue. Do you know what I mean? It's beautiful. And he's a celebrant of imagination and logical, rational thought. And that can lead to faith, but there might be some walls that have to be brought down together.
Lynn, you have you get to do a lot of cool things.
Yeah.
You go from the heights to the literal heights.
I love it.
That was really good.
My writers did that one down. They're not writers. I only have myself. What was the scariest or coolest thing you got to do?
Oh, I don't think there was anything particularly scary. It was all really fun. It was a checklist of things I've always wanted to do. Is it a spoiler to say anything about my first scene?
I think you're fine.
Yeah, no. Okay, so I literally come into this thing singing a duet with my demon. Yeah, on a big ass hot air balloon, which was a pretty fun way to enter the world. And but every day was a different kind of challenge. I think what's so fun about this world is you'll be doing a scene with someone and you're not just looking them in the eye to find their motives, you're looking at what their demon is doing. So every scene is like 3D chess. And that was a really particular acting challenge, and it was really joyous because, I mean, everyone, not only on this stage, but in our company is of such a high caliber that it really I just learned a lot. And I think that's all you can ask of any project. You cannot control the failure or success of anything. All you can hope to do is like get some more tools for your toolbox for the next one and learn a lot. And I had the best time working on this, and I can't believe we get to go back to summer camp this summer and do season 2.
Yes!
And Ruth, what's the best, worst thing about Mrs. Coulter? What is the thing you delight in getting to do?
Well,
You just break knuckles. What do you get to do?
Yes, definitely that stuff is really exciting. So I brought a bit of monkey into Mrs. C because she's a bit monkey. So I decided to. You'll see that she becomes a bit monkeyish when she's at her worst. And I get to do something quite nasty to a child and it was quite fun though. Sort of
Please don't take these quotes out of context. Out of context, this sounds so wild.
Oh my god, I just realized.
It's really interesting though. Being mean to a child, right?
That was so wrong.
When you and Daphne sit down together and you think about these scenes, when you and Daphne sit down together and you think about these scenes, you go down, Daphne, I'm gonna be horrible.
No, I think I just like.
No.
I did. Didn't I? No. Okay. No.
Now you do.
I think I just said a few times, okay, I'm gonna have to be quite nasty to you. I think right at the beginning I said I'm gonna have to be quite nasty to you. I hope, like, doesn't mean I'm nasty. Please. No, I had some fight scenes which I really enjoyed actually, and both of us get to do quite a lot of action.
Yeah.
You do especially, but I was like, I really enjoyed the action side of it because Mrs. C is so controlled and so sort of glamorous and seemingly has lots of grace, but then you see her at her worst, and that's when I quite enjoy those bits.
She's super cool.
She's super cool, yeah.
She is really cool.
Super evil and super cool.
The worst human.
I know there are a lot of people out there who have questions. So we're going to start with some questions for the audience now.
Ow! Literally 2 people.
Oh wow.
Oh no, there's actually a lot. Great, thanks. There are tens of people.
There's tens of
There's
thousands
4
of
people.
people.
Oh yeah, no, good.
Hi.
Okay, great. Spotlight.
My question is for Mr. Miranda. Could you maybe summarize why your Texan adventurer, it's fit for him to have a bunny? And if you could maybe do it in a freestyle rap.
First of all, it's an Arctic hare, which are about knee high. This ain't Thumper. And I think why an Arctic hare suits Lee is they can survive on anything. They survive in really tough conditions. They're totally scrappy survivors, and so is Lee Scoresby. Go Texas.
Hello. In whatever you can say, what scenes have you filmed that you're the most excited for us seeing, or had the most fun with, or destroyed yourself the most?
Who's that for?
Literally everyone.
Oh, it's going to be a long answer. You guys did the most, so I'll leave it to you.
I have this one scene, which I'm not going to spoil, but I'm very excited about with Ruth in episode 6, which is very fun. You'll like it.
You've got to watch 5
Really
episodes before that.
Yeah. But no, it's all really fun, and episode 1 was the most, light fun, you know, it was just me and Lou and Lloyd just running around places, jumping in laundry and doing that kind of stuff. So that was really fun to do. But strong action-wise, that scene with Ruth or the scene I have with you. No, you.
Yorick. The arrival of Yorick.
Yes.
Get ready, y'all.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and this question is for everybody, even Lynn.
Thanks.
Lynn, you're getting it today.
I see your Hamilton shirt. I love you too.
It's about the creative process and collaboration. Given all of your talents, can you tell us about a time when you had ideas or notes on a script or a performance? How do you work them out with your showrunner and your fellow cast members in the most collaborative and respectful way, while also elevating the work?
Well, I think this question is best for Ruth, since she just had a very epic plane ride.
Yeah, you go 11 hours on a plane helps. No, talking to this man is quite good because he's so collaborative and he knows the book's inside out. So it's really, this is the man to talk to if you have any script or character questions.
Yeah.
And they're really open to sort of developing and digging in. So it's been a lovely collaboration.
Aww. Also, let me say one thing.
Like Columbo, one more thing.
I think I didn't, everything I said, Jack had already thought of it, so there wasn't much to say. Like he'd be like, so Jack, yeah, I already thought of that. Okay, good. So yeah.
So,
Huge fan. I have a friend from Colorado who loves you. His name is Tullis.
Tullis.
All right, my question for you is, what was it like transitioning from Broadway into TV and film?
Well, that's an interesting question. It's been kind of amazing. You know, for me, this has been a really wild ride. I feel like I always wanted to do film first, actually. I really wanted to be Chuck Jones when I grew up. I wanted to make animated movies when I was a kid, and then I fell in love with theater in high school, and I feel like I'm making my way back to my first love. But I kind of go into every project like I'm an apprentice. And so I feel like I learned so much on every project. There used to be these commercials when I was a kid, those DeVry Technical Institute. You know what I'm talking about? And they're like, every month you learn to use a tool, and once you learn to use that tool goes in your toolbox, and by the end of 2 years you'll have a degree from DeVry. And that's how we think of every job I take. I'm getting another little tool for my tool belt. All right.
Question for James. What's the biggest challenge you face? Sorry, I'm so nervous.
You're doing great. Oh, you're okay, you're doing great.
What's the biggest challenge you face when you're portraying the character? And I love you.
This is fantastic. We make sure that the next people that ask questions all love me as well. The biggest challenge in playing Asriel, to make a connection when your soul is a snow leopard, a solitary. Can I say who Stella Maria is voiced by the way?
Oh yes.
With the voice of Helen McCrory, which is incredible. So, like, she's got that sort of remoteness to her, so that's quite interesting. Also, this is a man with like a massive, extreme purpose, and he knows what that purpose is. He's got no doubts about who he's going after, why he's going after them, and what the hell he's going to do to them. But I can't give that away to anybody in the show or anybody in the audience for a long ass time. What? Okay, thanks for that. You spoke when they laughed, what? Okay. We're moving on. So that's tricky because you're basically doing that thing of like, he's very enigmatic, he's mercurial, he's quixotic, which is brilliant for the audience if we get it right, but it's tricky for the actor because you can never quite nail down anything hard to get, you know what I mean? So that's the most difficult thing I'd say. Thank you for your question, thank you for loving me.
We have time for one last question.
Then love me.
My name is Sam. My question's for the cast. What animal would your demon be in real life?
We got this earlier today, so you should start.
Okay. A sea otter. I would like to be a sea otter. Yeah. They're exceptional. Yes, we do love each other. They're exceptionally happy, playful. They play in large groups, and they just love eating and playing and sleeping. And it's a real good, sort of almost like a water dog. Do you know what I mean? I'm off for that.
Pizza rat. Have you ever seen the footage of the rat taking pizza down into the subway platform where it lives?
Yes.
That's my demon. That demon's got it all figured out.
I'm gonna let Jack answer this because he answered it earlier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I said Ruth is a sphinx.
Sphinx?
I don't know, I haven't thought about it. A cat of some sort, probably.
I can see that.
You can see me as
I
a
can see
cat.
that.
What are you?
I think I'm like, you know, one of these really annoying tiny tropical monkeys, which are like bouncing around all the time. Yeah, one of those.
Accurate.
Yeah?
Oh, I'm a woodpecker.
Yeah? You need to tell them why, Jack.
Oh, was it? I'm a very anxious person.
And I'm obviously a wolf, coming from bad wolf as I do. I think I have to be a big wolf.
And I'm thrilled to have hosted you today. The great thing about this show is it gives us all hope that we can imagine the world, or indeed any worlds, the way we want them to be if we do what Jack says, which is be good. So be good, and thank you all for joining us.